Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm your co-host, Matt Bernico.
And I'm your other co-host, Dean Detloff. Matt, it's hot.
Oh God, it's so hot. I'm in Scotland. I'm pretty far in the northern hemisphere. You can get further north, but I'm pretty far up here, and it's even hot here. So I can only imagine what it's like in the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's hot in Canada. It's hot in Scotland. It's just a hot time. And I gotta tell you, this climate change thing, this global warming, I don't think we gotta do it anymore. I think it's hot enough.
I think so too. So here's one big difficulty with the heat in Scotland is that it's rainy and cold so often here that even like abnormal days where it's hotter than it should be, and it is like obviously a result of climate change, people get pretty psyched for it. So it's warm. It's way warmer than it should be here. It's it's like 85 today or something like that. So not that hot in the grand scheme of things, but Scottish people are going nuts for it. Everyone's walking around without their shirts on. I rode my bike past the beach today, and it was just like jam-packed full of people. The queue for the pool was down around the block. It's bonkers, and it's bad. They shouldn't be enjoying it. It should be a nice day. Should be kind of like a reminder that things are falling apart. But I get it. I did enjoy the nice weather as well, so I guess I can't blame them altogether. But I think climate change, we should think twice about this. Too hot.
People are probably enjoying it in Toronto, but I have retreated into the safety of my apartment. We bought one air conditioner unit for our apartment about a year or 2 years ago after a particularly sweltering heat wave. And we try to run it very infrequently, but we did run it this weekend, and man, I am going to live here forever. I don't need to go outside. I don't know what's going on out there. There's nothing out there for me. I'm all indoors now. That's it.
Oh man. The interesting thing about houses in the UK is that they are like designed to retain heat during the cold months, and they have no they have no way of like cooling down though. So there's no fans, there's no air conditioning, there's no nothing. So it's just like open your window. So I've just been like living on the back deck of our house because it's way cooler out there than it is in our house. So
today we had to get groceries, so I did have to leave my house for a short period of time. And the grocery store is not far from my apartment, but far enough to be kind of an annoying walk. And on a nice day, it's a great walk. On a hot day like this one, it feels so bad. So today, my wife and I were trying to decide who's going to go to the grocery store. And she did get me because she said, well, you're the one who has a religion that valorizes suffering, so I think you should go.
Oh,
and
snap.
I had to go. She was right.
Dang, that's great. Well, you can walk to the grocery store and sweat, and you'll be suffering just like Jesus did. And isn't that special for you?
Exactly.
Great.
It was really a favor I was doing to myself by feeling so bad.
Wow, so cool. So hot, in fact. Folks, this week what we're doing is we're bringing back a little bit of the lock-in theme. We don't have an overarching idea for this episode, so we thought we would kind of bring in some of the current events that we've been interested in learning more about or kind of keeping an eye on in the last, week or so. And of course, we're gonna get warmed up though first with some questions from http://www.reddit.com/r/Christianity. So anyways, get excited for that. And we will we'll answer some really burning questions amidst this scorching heat wave that's apparently international.
Before we do, though, I feel like we're already kind of the heat is clearly melting our brains because the key to the walk-in, for people who are new to this podcast, the walk-in is a segment we used to do on our paywall podcast, which we don't do really at all anymore. But the joke back then, the metafiction of it, is that Matt and I had started a youth ministry and we were answering questions from the youth of today, found on reddit.com. And when we went to the Bone Church in Rome, we decided that the Bone Church was pretty exciting and pretty cool. And in the fictional family life fun center that we did have for the walk-in, I've created our own sort of Bone Church, which is not full, but is maybe it's the future home of many bones in the basement of the church. And I think during a heat wave, like, where would you rather be than in a basement surrounded by bones, which definitely would not be producing any more heat. So I want to encourage us to do a bit of a kind of sitcom wavy screen doodly 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 kind of thing, and we'll just kind of find ourselves seated at inside the Bone Church, which is still mostly surrounded with old discarded Spirit Halloween decorations, but I feel like it's a cooler place than the Family Life Center, which is just way too hot for anybody to think about anything.
In the evangelical Bone Church crypt, that is sort of like a future projection, there are the Spirit Halloween decorations are like a promissory note, like, and there's a plaque under each one where someone's bones will be in the future. It's like, this is going to be Ronald McDonald's resting place in the future, where we're going to arrange his bones to look like a scythe on the ceiling or something.
They all say, they say, this could be you, and in parentheses, actually, this will be you. That's the memento mori.
Great. I love that. Thank you so much for explaining the lore of this. I kind of forgot. I forgot where we were last time around, and it's so great to hear that that's it. Junior Youth Pastor Dean, will you give us the first question to start thinking about these?
I will, and it is tangentially bone themed. The title of the question is, I'm getting my wisdom teeth removed. Teeth, of course, being not exactly bones, but come on, basically bones.
I think close enough.
Yeah, they're close enough. They're a stone's throw away from bones. The body of the text says, does anyone think that if I prayed for this, God would let the Holy Spirit speak through me during anesthesia or whatever makes you high? And I'm curious, Matt, let's take this questioner very seriously. Let's say you're getting your wisdom teeth removed. You've had the goofy gas. You've been put under whatever else they give you. And they're doing all the work they have to do to take out your wisdom teeth. What kind of thing do you think would be like a good opportunity to say in order to really share the gospel in a moment like that?
That's such a good question. I imagine it is actually really important to think about if you're a Christian, because you want to make sure that you can evangelize to the doctor and the nurses in the room with you as they're ripping the teeth from your skull. I think that would be a cool time to be like, think about your own death, like, these teeth are bones and they're leaving my body, but someday your bones are going to be leaving your body. I think that could be something. That could be maybe an idea. Because when you're coming out of the silly gas that makes you high after you get your teeth pulled out, you're saying all kinds of goofy things, but what if you said something really profound about your future impending doom? I think that would be really jarring for the doctor to hear.
So you want it to be a kind of like Kirk Cameron, have you thought about what happens to you after you die kind of moment, while their fingers are in your mouth, they're pulling the tooth out of your gum. That's the moment when you pull the way of the master Kirk Cameron formula on them.
Is the memento mori the Catholic version of Kirk Cameron? Sorry, I'm answering a question with another question, but I think it's an important one to get out on the table at this very moment.
That is a really good question. It is a pretty elaborate tract, if you think about it. The Bone Church, that is.
That's right. I feel like the difference is like Kirk Cameron's trying to get you to say a particular Jesus prayer, and the Bone Church is trying to really make you consider something bigger than that, which I can appreciate. It is the intellectuals. The memento mori is the intellectuals. Kirk Cameron, I guess, is what I'm landing on here.
It's true. I mean, you're walking through, and the whole idea is you're going to get so spooked about your own death that by the time you see that painting of the resurrection at the end, you're going to be ready to give your life to Christ, because you know that if your bones were in this Bone Church, you might not find yourself on the right side of eternity. So it's true. It's a pretty theatrical version of the Kirk Cameron formula.
Okay, then, so to circle back around then to this whole thing, I think if you were to encounter your doctor with that kind of thing, I feel like that would be something that they wouldn't forget, Because I'm sure they've got lots of goofy stories. People are always saying embarrassing things. There's silly stuff, David after the dentist, et cetera, et cetera. But they're going to be like at a dinner party later on, and they're going to be like, you're never going to believe what this one guy told me. And he was telling me that someday I'm going to die and I'm going to be bones just like his teeth. And that's really stuck with me. And that's really made me troubled as a doctor. So I think that could really help.
Yeah, I think it would really help. I have to agree. I feel like, though, the one thing you'd have to do is before you go under it, you'd have to really prime yourself. Like, while you're in the waiting room on your phone, you'd have to just be kind of like reading and rereading the script over and over again. I mean, you should definitely pray for it. But I feel like if you can give God a hand by having it already kind of locked and loaded in the like subconscious part of your brain, I feel like that'll really tip the scales.
I feel like this is slowly veering into like like locking and loading it into the subconscious part of your brain is really like careening into sort of Severance territory, like like coming out of the tooth surgery is sort of like you're outie. I'm sorry, you're innie waking up and remembering something from the outside world, and it's just a lot harder than you think, I imagine.
Yeah, can you like evangelize while you're lucid dreaming? Like, what happens if you share Christ with the products of your own consciousness?
Oh man, hang on. I'm just gonna do a quick Google, a quick search here.
Like, you're in Inception, and the top is still spinning, but you meet a couple of folks in there who look like they could really use a hand from Jesus Christ.
Unsurprisingly, a lot about Christianity and lucid dreaming. Is it a sin? Is lucid dreaming against God? Okay. No one's asking the important question of evangelizing two people while you're lucid dreaming. And I think that sucks. I'm going to have to make this a question that I add to
You're
the
gonna have to
Christianity
ask.
subreddit. I'm going to have to ask, can you can you evangelize people in your dreams? I think that's great. I think you should. I mean, might as well. What if you like it's not that like you're talking to other people in your dreams who are like sort of existing independently from you. You're just talking to other parts of yourself in your lucid dream. So if
As far as
you could,
who could say?
as far as I mean, as far as I could probably say though. Um, but what if like you need to tell a really deep part of yourself to really accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? I think that might be worth your time.
True. I've just been scrolling the Christianity subreddit. There are a couple. Is magic wrong when you're lucid dreaming? Lots of sex questions, obviously. There is something that's getting into the territory here, though, where it's praying in lucid dreams is weird. This person says, I'll sometimes have semi-lucid dreams where I'm aware that I'm dreaming, but won't have full control of the dream world. Sometimes I'll hear a voice when attempting to speak to God that won't be attributed to a visible dream character that will talk to me. I've often awakened, even in dreams that weren't lucid, coming out of a prayer within my dreams. So, I don't know. All let's say, I think there's room to ask the question.
I mean, you got to get in your dreams and just give it a shot, I think is really what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. That's enough on that. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Teeth and waking up and sharing the gospel. What else you got in the chamber there, Matt? The chamber being the bone church. Not a gun.
Not a gun. Thank you for clarifying the metaphorical chamber in this one. I don't want to be shooting out Reddit questions. I want to be thinking about sort of processing through these different chambers of the bone church. Man, again, just a completely jarring experience if you've never heard this podcast before, but that's okay. I'm not worried about you. You'll catch on sooner or later. So this is a Reddit question that is 2 minutes old. I love these. I love getting them when they're like hot and steaming. It's so nice. It's so nice knowing that someone just asked this question, and now me, a complete weirdo who's not really participating in the subreddit, is going to talk about it. This person writes, I can't forgive some people, and sometimes I want bad things to happen to them. Okay, you can kind of see where this is going. I know it's something like sin, but I can't. I don't really hate them, but more like I'm disgusted of them, not only for people that treat me wrong, but also for some characters and kind people out there. There's a lot of grammar, so I'm just whatever. Just whatever. Anyways, they say, I want bad things to happen to them, but believe in change. If I see them regretting what they did, it's okay, but not for some people in my personal life. So, Dean, what do you think about this? Some people, they do things that are bad, especially to us, and we can't forgive them, and we want bad things to happen to them. What is it that we should be instructing the teens to do about this one? I think it's one that's plaguing the youth all over the place.
Yeah, they're all asking this question on TikTok. I think that despite the poster's distinction, they do in fact hate these people. That's maybe the first thing to make very clear. Just saying you don't hate them doesn't mean you don't hate them. That, I think, is a dangerous place to be. hatred is a complicated thing. But the most important thing is if you're going to hate somebody, you should really do it on purpose. You should know you're doing it. Then you can deal with it. You can figure out what you want to do with it. I think if you hate people and you're telling yourself that you don't hate them, then you're in big trouble.
That's a pretty wise thing to say. I'm
pretty
completely
wise.
I would say so. I'm completely distracted in this question though by the idea that like, okay, if I see somebody do something I don't like, I cannot forgive them. I want bad things to happen to them. But if I see them regretting something that they did, then it's kind of okay, is the vibe. It's so funny. Like, if people are sort of like sending like outwardly recognizable, remorseful sort of signals, then I can kind of empathize with this person and realize that it's probably okay. But if they are not, if they're just processing it internally, just fuck them. It's just the whole thing.
Well, okay. One funny, serious thing about this, I was talking recently, well, not too long ago, with my wife about this Me Without You song, where at the end they say, why not let's forgive everyone, everywhere, all the time, everything. And they say that over and over again. And it's a great song. They're a great band. But man, that is such a hard thing to actually think about. And then I was thinking about the moment where they're talking to Jesus and one of the disciples, maybe Peter or somebody, is like, wait a minute. You're telling me I've got to forgive somebody for whatever they do. What if they do the same thing like 7 times? And Jesus is like, I'm telling you, you should forgive them 70 times, 7 times. Just an insane ratcheting up of the demand of forgiveness. And I got to tell you, I don't like it. I think it's too hard. I don't enjoy it. Would have been nice to have an asterisk on that one, but I guess you just have to. You just have to do it. You have to forgive everybody, everywhere, all the time, everything. What that looks like, I don't know. I have no idea. Probably very complicated, but it seems like a cool, weird challenge that Christianity does give people.
Yeah, a really radical idea for sure. I don't want to wade too far into territories where I'm being earnest and and serious. So, do you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, of course. This one is it wrong to pray for a movie to do well at the box office?
Okay.
I really liked the DC universe presented in James Gunn's Superman movie, and I want to see even more of it in other future works in cinema. But this will only happen if the movie grosses a good enough box office to make a profit for Warner Brothers. Would it be wrong for me to pray for this movie to gross $800 million or even $1 billion? What do you think, Matt? Would it be wrong to pray that Superman grosses $1 billion?
Well, listen, I've not seen the new Superman movie. I will probably see it shortly because my son is of the age where every superhero movie is something that he like must consume. And to be honest, I like going to the movies, and that's fine. So I've heard it's good. There's a Sojourners article out about it. People are reflecting very positively about this movie. So I've heard it's good. Whatever, that's fine. But no, I think praying for the movie to do well is bad not because of the movie itself, not because of the messaging in the movie, but because of the because of the merchandising of the movie. Because if this movie does really well, then there will be 13,000 plastic Supermans made from virgin petrochemicals out in the world, and that is a sin for sure. That's 100% sinning, I think. So I think that it's great if you like a movie and you can tell your friends to go see it. But I think that we shouldn't want a movie to be too popular, because then it will inevitably lead to just like lots of trash being created for no really good reason. And that's something that no one's thinking about, and we should.
True. I think the funniest thing about this question is that you couldn't have picked a weirder example for a movie that really needs your prayers to do well.
Yeah, big
the
time.
Superman movie.
Like, it's a movie that is like manufactured to be popular, so I don't think it's gonna be that big of a problem.
Please God, make this make a blockbuster. Do a good job. There is a pretty funny question along those lines in here. This is, why not pray for a Christian movie to cross $1 billion? I think those need our prayers even more.
I think that those require our prayers to make them stop altogether. We're praying in the wrong direction on that one.
The original poster does have the perfect response to it, which is, Superman has Christian values such as righteousness, charity, wisdom, perseverance, kindness, altruism, and other cardinal virtues. And I like the idea that Superman is already just a Christian movie.
Yeah. In canon, I think, isn't Superman like Methodist or something? I'm sure there's some real comic heads out there who know. but that's probably true.
So there you have it. Don't pray for Superman. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. Capitalism has got him on this one. They've got it figured out. Pray that nobody makes endless Superman garbage that will end up like in a dump. That will happen. Sorry, that's gonna happen for sure. But you should still pray about it. Okay. A reoccurring theme on this this bit of the podcast is people asking questions about what happens when you get to heaven and then theorizing a little bit too much about it. There's a deep lore on this podcast of things that we've already said about what heaven is like and like what other people on Reddit have suggested is happening in heaven. And maybe a quick rundown of at least of the things that I can remember. So in heaven, the Bible says that we have new spiritual bodies, and the way that's been worked out on Reddit and also this podcast, which we are I guess in line with Reddit for whatever reason, is that these spiritual bodies are like perfect spherical orbs that just kind of float around. That's good. The humors are all balanced. That's important. A conversation that we had kind of too long ago. And then aliens are in heaven, but since everyone has a perfect spherical body, you don't know who's an alien and who's not an alien. That's a big part of it. Are there any other parts that I'm missing, Dean? Is that that seems good?
That all sounds pretty good. Yeah. Oh, I guess there was a whole conversation about, St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. They were trying to figure out like what happens to your fingernails and hair and so on that you lose during your life. What happens at the resurrection, and they do all come back to you, and they become part of the orb, part of the ball. So that I feel like is a really important detail.
The ball is mostly fingernails, which is cool.
Mostly nails and hair, which is a pretty gross ball, actually.
Yep, but listen, it's theologically sound. Who are we to say it's gross? A perfect spherical hairy ball in heaven. Okay, so here's one more bit of the lore to kind of heap atop of that. And I think that we have talked about this bit before, but I think it's worth revisiting in this particular formulation on the subreddit. So this is from the Catholicism subreddit, so it's got that good Catholic sort of vibe to it. 20 hours old, still pretty hot off the press. And then the post is called "No Marriage in Heaven," the body of the text is, "I know there's no marriage in heaven, but what entails exactly is confusing to me. Is it fair to say that the formal institution ends at death?" Only Catholics come up with this kind of like lawyering of the rules of heaven. I love it. Is it fair to say that the formal institution ends at death because in heaven we won't be sexual with each other, won't have the earthly limitations to love everyone, but at the same time we might recognize each other, have an intimate, unique union, and be best friends? As in a new form of relationship, but still a continuation of what we formed on earth. I love my spouse so much, and the thought of, oh, one of us died, so now we are eternally separated even if we both end up in heaven, sounds heartbreaking. And I know heaven will be the opposite of that. So, could that be a possible interpretation of what Christ says? So, Jesus says, I guess, in the gospel, not I guess, I know it's in there, that when you die, you're not married anymore. Okay. But what if you're not married in the same way, but you have a new, super different type of relationship where you're still best friends?
Right.
First of all, it's so sweet how much this person loves their spouse. I like that a lot for them. That's extremely wholesome. So that's great. But Dean, what's the definitive answer on this one? Are you super best friends with your spouse in heaven or something different?
Right. The post-marital eternal friend zone. I think... I like the idea of having a super marriage that's so marital it's not even marriage, and that's what happens to you in heaven. But one big problem, and it's the problem that Jesus was responding to in the Bible, is what happens if you were married once and then your spouse died and then you got remarried, or what happens, for example, to people who have a variety of spouses at a single time, or partners, or whatever. And this is one of those things where at the end of the day, I'm just kind of comfortable saying however God wants to sort it out is going to be fine. And I don't know. I love my wife. She's great. And she loves me. I'm great. Well, I'm sure that we'll think each other are great when we get to heaven. And exactly how? That's one of those divine mysteries, I'd say. Definitely not the kind of thing I would ask only a handful of celibate popes to tell me about. I got to tell you that.
There's a whole section of heaven that's just celibate popes, and they don't have super friends, and I think that's so sad.
I think they're probably fine.
I guess so. We can ask them when we get up there if they how they feel about it. All right, Dean. Let's turn the page. Let's shift gears. Let's stop talking about questions on Reddit. What is happening in the world that you're interested in at the moment? What do we need to talk about?
All right. For your consideration, I have brought to you today some news from liberation theology. A thing that rarely makes the news anymore. We try to talk about it despite that. But most of the time, people in the English-speaking world are not interested. But there are at least two stories that have been interesting. One is there's an open letter written by Clodovis Boff, a priest who is, yes, the brother of Leonardo Boff, who we have talked about a lot on the show. Friend of the pod, Leonardo Boff. He has a cameo in Arnie book, a great guy. He and his brother, they were both liberation theologians back in the day. They wrote a book together called Introducing Liberation Theology, which is very good. And Clodovis also wrote his own stuff that is generally pretty good as well on liberation theology. But somewhere in the early 2000s, Clodovis Boff decided he was not a liberation theologian anymore. In 2007, he wrote an article that made a lot of news where he basically talked about the fundamental error of liberation theology, sort of trading the care for the poor with like Christ himself, that they were kind of idolizing the struggle against poverty, which was a wild thing to say in 2007. Also, his brother Leonardo weighed in public and was like, what are you talking about? You literally wrote a bunch of books about this and you know that that's not true. Anyway, a family affair that happened in the early 2000s and then kind of like fizzled out. But Clodovis is back in the news because in June, he wrote an open letter to the bishops in Latin America, and which I think is wild. And in it, he basically says that the bishops, they only care about social issues now when they should care about preaching the gospel. They should be talking about the supernatural, about whatever, the church, etc. And the letter has kind of circulated in English. It was translated. It has gone around in a few places. He also has been interviewed in a couple of media. It's making the news, I guess. But it's so wild because, first of all, he's like lecturing the bishops' conference, which is really weird. It's just like a single priest, just a guy to do. But secondly, if you go to like the website of Salam, for example, the Latin American bishops, you will find there is a lot more than social issues going on there, and all the normal things you would expect bishops to be talking about: feast days, prayer, times of prayer, tools for prayer, all this kind of stuff. So just a really wild kind of piece of news that has floated up these days, that Clodovis Boff, he's still out there. He's still deciding liberation theology was wrong. And now not only are the theologians wrong, but the bishops themselves are wrong. I looked up Leonardo Boff to see if he had made any response, and he hasn't. I imagine it's probably very weird for your brother to do these very embarrassing things. And I have to figure out whether or not to say anything about it. But anyway, a wild piece of news that is circulating in Anglophone media these days.
It is wild. It's wild that he would say it. I think the claims are strange in the first place. You know, in what ways are social issues not about the gospel? I think is a question I would probably put to him. Whatever, that's fine. I guess like it just leaves me wondering like if there's some kind of like political maneuvering to these types of things. Like, is there a reason that he needs to say this or something? It just seems so bizarre, I guess, otherwise. Like, we talked about the bishops kind of releasing the statement about degrowth last week, and you told me that this is not as a response to that. That's before this. So I wonder, just like, I don't know. Is there some kind of context that helps us make sense of the situation? Is there some kind of like, is this political? Is this just like a cranky guy being cranky?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, he released it after Salam had like a big meeting, their General Assembly, to kind of talk about stuff. So I guess that's like some immediate context. And I think too that Pope Leo becoming the Pope and Pope Francis being passed is another piece of it.
Hmm.
Maybe, I mean, this is speculation, but maybe Clodovis Boff, for example, is seeing an opportunity to kind of like, you know, I guess correct the opening to liberation theology that Pope Francis had softly opened back up. Maybe he thinks
So
that
weird.
Leo is like providing an opportunity to make an intervention, but that's just like speculation, I guess. Just searching for a
Right.
reason.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. So there so it is either searching for a reason, it's speculation, or it is like this guy's cranky. I don't know. Like it just seems such like a weird thing to do, having like made that a big part of your life, but I don't know. That's so weird.
It is weird. It's weird in particular because his stuff, as I mentioned in the past on liberation theology, is pretty good. He wrote a book even called Praxis and Theology, which is about like the dialectical method and how it works with liberation theology. He tended to be a more systematic thinker than Leonardo Boff. I
Yeah.
think we joked when we read Introducing Liberation Theology that you can really tell which one is writing which
Mhm.
which chapters. So it is strange, and I mean, this is also maybe a good reminder that whereas we used to have kind of an abundance of journalism about developments in the church in the global south, these days we don't. So if you don't read Portuguese, which I do not, you're sort of shut out probably from some of the important context and like intramural conversations that are happening in the background there. Whereas, you know, you'd probably have a better handle on it 20 years ago when there were like
Mm.
whole journalists, you know, dedicated to like covering that stuff. These days, there's actually one guy who deserves a medal named Eduardo Campos Lima. He used to write for, well, he writes freelance for a number of different outlets, but these days he writes a lot at Crux, which is a kind of independent Catholic media site, and then he'll show up at like National Catholic Reporter here and there. Anyway, he covers liberation theology in a way that like nobody else does for English speaking people. But yeah, all that to say, maybe the confusion around it is also a result of yeah, just lacking the media environment that would make it make more sense. But maybe it's also
Yeah,
just
interesting.
bizarre. I don't know. Leonardo Boff seemed to think it was bizarre in 2007, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is bizarre. Well, Clodovis Boff, I guess he can be cranky if he wants to. I mean, at the end of the day, he's written so many books about liberation theology and like contributed so much to that conversation. Like, no matter what he says, he'll be remembered as a liberation theology guy. So I guess like he can be damned by his own his own sort of history. I guess that inevitably is just kind of like the way he'll be remembered. Um, so whatever.
Uh, however, this is the good news part. This is other news on the liberation theology front, and because it
Sure.
is so really covered, worth putting out here. That's Clodovis Boff. In another article, though, Leonardo Boff did get interviewed by Eduardo Campos Lima on NCR, National Catholic Reporter, about Pope Leo the 14th. And I thought it'd be good to provide the counter Boff to Clodovis. Leonardo Boff, he is also Brazilian, as we said, still out there maintaining a very active blog, talking a lot about current issues, still figuring out liberation theology. And I won't read the whole article, but I thought it was interesting that something he points out in the interview that he has is that it's probably too early to tell whether or not Leo is going to be a kind of more like right or left oriented kind of pope. But from Leonardo Boff's perspective, he's kind of expecting him to be seeking like a kind of mediating position, avoiding polarization in the church, which is not really a, you know, very unique or radical insight, but interesting that that's Leonardo Boff's I don't know, in anticipation. And I've seen elsewhere too that he has said, Leonardo Boff has said that the one thing that Francis gave is kind of an inability to go backwards. And in this particular article, Leonardo Boff says that one thing that we know about him, speaking of Pope Leo, he's a North American with a Latin American soul. So there you go. Cautious optimism, I guess, from Leonardo Boff. But
Yeah.
maybe Clodovis Boff seeing it as an opportunity to correct past mistakes. We'll see which Boff ends up being right.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any big thoughts about it at this point. I guess I feel like a lot of the press that that Pope Leo has gotten in the last few weeks and months has really demonstrated sort of, picking up a lot of the Pope Francis kind of stuff, especially around Palestine. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, I guess, what happens more. I appreciate Boff's cautiousness about it, though. Seems good. Seems like a good idea.
Yeah. What's going on in your media environment these days?
I feel like I have 1,000 niche Scottish things to talk about, but I'm not going to, because nobody cares about them except for me, and that's fine. Maybe in the future, when something interesting happens, we can talk more about UK politics, but for now, let's not. Something that has been really interesting to me is kind of like there've been ice raids throughout California. Everyone knows that already. That's not new news at all. But the UFW, the United Farm Workers, that's the sort of farm workers union and sort of like advocacy group, sort of both of those things all rolled into one because of the particular way that farm workers are precarious in the United States. They, sometimes an official union is not quite working in their situation. They've been really vocal, I think, about the ICE raids in the last month, probably, especially because in a lot of instances they've targeted farm workers who are like on the job and getting rounded up by ICE. Just on Friday, there was a pretty big raid in California. And I think I first learned about it. It's kind of surprisingly, it's sort of hard to kind of catch all of the interesting things that happen in US labor from the UK because the algorithm does not work in your favor to show you those things a lot of times.
The time difference,
yeah, the time difference is confusing. Like by the time stuff's getting published and stuff, like I'm already in bed. It's a whole thing. Anyways, there's an article that came out from Mel Buer, who is a really fantastic journalist who covers labor stuff, activism stuff. They are very cool. She was on the show once, like a very long time ago, when, I don't know, they were living a kind of different life, doing their own podcast, and it's a whole thing. But anyways, now she's writing in all these different places, and she's very talented. Just a really cool person who's like out there kind of like getting the scoop on the ground, showing up and like writing about what they see. It's awesome. So anyways, I guess we could start here. This is not from Mel's article, but we'll get there in a minute. This is from The Guardian, just reading it out just to get some of the facts on the table. So in this article from The Guardian, it says, a farm worker died on Friday from injuries that he sustained a day earlier in the raids on 2 California cannabis farm sites as U.S. immigration authorities confirmed they arrested 200 workers after a tense standoff with authorities. Jaime Alanis' death was confirmed in a social media post by United Farm Workers Advocacy Group. Calling them an advocacy group is so weird. I just did it, but it feels wrong. They're a union, whatever. The UFW, they said, we tragically can confirm that a farm worker has died of injuries they sustained as a result of yesterday's immigration enforcement action. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement that the authorities, they executed criminal search warrants in California on Thursday. They arrested immigrants suspected of being in the country illegally, and there were also at least 10 immigrant children on site, the statement said. So this is what happened. I mean, that part is not news because it's been happening all the time, but this one is particularly newsworthy because somebody literally died because they were, trying to not get rounded up and deported, which to me seems, I don't know, pretty understandable why you wouldn't want that to happen to yourself. All kinds of reasons why that would be what you'd want to avoid. It's awful. It's a really tragic situation. I think that's so stupid. It's so like, first of all, I don't care about illegal immigration, like whatsoever. There's like no argument that makes sense to me. No borders, smash the state, whatever. I don't care. That's fine. But like, even if you are a person who does care about immigration or whatever, if you have like sort of a common sense take on immigration reform or whatever, these are people who literally have jobs and are literally working, and then ICE shows up and like rounds them up, which is just baffling to me. Especially like farm workers are among the most essential people in society. Like, do you like to eat vegetables? Do you like to smoke weed? I guess, I don't know. Then maybe you should be like worried about these workers. It's insane. So that's sort of like the view from 30,000 feet of what's going on. A farm worker died trying to evade ICE or whatever. The story though that Mel tells is so much more interesting, and I mean it's kind of horrifying in a different way, but there's also kind of like an amazing aspect to it, where she brings out like the ways that like community activists showed up to sort of defend, or at least like bear witness to what's going on with ICE. And I think it's pretty worth thinking about in this like sort of more on the ground sense. So she writes this. On Thursday, federal agents with Customs and Border Patrol, aided by the California National Guard, raided 2 cannabis farms in Ventura County. Hundreds of workers were rounded up into vans at the 2 locations. Rapid response teams had been following agents throughout the country for weeks, trying to head off many of the raids before they had a chance to snatch people up. On Thursday morning, while conducting their usual patrols, they noticed that the Border Patrol agents were driving into the military base nearby. The organizer with VC Defensa, Leo, noticed the unusual activity and put out a call about an imminent large-scale raid, and then folks jumped into action. Almost as soon as the raids began, community members were on the ground to meet them. The roads and the farms were blockaded by National Guard and police, preventing any ingress into the properties themselves, but people came anyways. As word got out, more and more people arrived. I spoke with one activist who was on the ground all day on Thursday, who told me that at first she wasn't sure if they could hold them off. This is a quote from the activist who was there. When we first got out there were maybe 25 people, she said, and then there were 30, and then there were 50. Community members, activists, family members of the workers being detained inside, and concerned strangers made their way to the blockades and settled in for a long fight. So the rest of the article is kind of amazing. She goes on just kind of describing what it's like. Lots of chanting. Love it. Love a good chant. Nothing like it. And then things get really tense as the sun goes down. It gets dark. There's tear gas, everything that you'd expect. And then the next day, people are still there. And, it all like the news breaks that someone died and like exactly what happened. It's just like, it's like a really sobering explanation of like what's going on to a really marginalized community that you probably never think about if you're a regular American person. I don't know, farm workers probably fly under the radar most of the time. You have no idea where your food comes from, because like why would you? There's nothing like sort of externally prompting you to think about that unless you're just like a curious person. But the cool part of this is just the explanation of like how many people showed up to just kind of be in solidarity with those workers, to try to do whatever they can to to do whatever they can to stop it from happening, or at least just observe it happening, providing any kind of support they can. It's just it's kind of heartening to know that there are people out there that are really trying to like do something in a big way. And I think that's cool. I don't know. It's awful. It's awful that the result is like somebody literally dying, but it is like heartening to know that there is a giant community of people in California who are still showing up like every day to these kinds of things to try and figure it out. So yeah, I don't know. Uplifting, terrible, heartbreaking, shattering all at the same time. A lot of conflicting feelings, but it's a good piece of writing and definitely something that people should go read. It's in the Welcome to Hell world. I don't know if people are familiar with that website. Luke O'Neill runs it, I think, and Mel writes for it, I guess, every now and again. But this piece was particularly good, worth highlighting.
Yeah, that is so bizarre. I mean, the whole story is crazy. I was kind of watching it unfold a little bit on Blue Sky. Just kind of whatever, like the UFW was doing a bunch of skeets on it and people were commenting and so on. And what I really appreciate about Mel is that I feel like they have really committed to covering struggles in a way that requires a lot of learning about how organizers think and work and how struggles kind of come together or don't. And that is something that a lot of mainstream reporting in general just lacks. Like journalists just don't think that way. They don't have that kind of training. I mean, Mel doesn't have, as far as I can tell, training in that either, except for on the job training, or kind of like the kinds of stuff you pick up by virtue of having a real commitment to actual solidarity and people really figuring it out. But I feel like one thing that I really appreciated about that article is being able to have somebody like, I don't know, like pull the story out from the barrage of just like weird social media stuff that you kind of see go by your feed, and you're like, whoa, I guess there's something going on, but I don't really know what it is quite yet. And it's nice to have somebody actually taking the time to parse that out. And I feel like that's also a kind of piece of the story here. Like, one of the worst things I think about the ICE raids in general and the kind of phase of fascism that we have in the US right now is that there are both stories of like total violence and disappearances that are never going to get to the news at all, and journalists will not cover it, just by virtue of kind of also the media landscape and how that works. But on the other hand too, there are so many stories of people organizing and trying to figure it out, and sharing tips and strategies and that sort of thing that also are gonna not get reported unless people have folks like Mel out there doing the hard work and kind of hosting that stuff. So yeah, it is equal parts like horrifying, terrible, tragic, and also like a kind of really brutal opportunity to remember that people are trying to organize, and it's important to keep boosting the signal of how that's happening and making those kinds of connections. Otherwise it just feels like bleak, awful, shitty headline after headline.
Yeah, for sure. Let me read the end of this article too, just to kind of prove the point. And maybe like, I don't know. The end of the article has some stuff that needs to be said. I think that's great. Great. And sorry, I sound too enthusiastic about it. It's like, it's heartbreaking, but it's important to be said, I think. So she writes, the next day, the gravity of the situation became more clear. Workers reportedly hid from advancing lines of heavily armed guards in greenhouses for hours. On Friday afternoon, some workers were still unaccounted for. Many were injured. And she goes on just kind of like listing other people. It's just people are worried. There's like family outside the situation who have showed up who are just like, they don't know if the people who, they don't know if their family members have been abducted and disappeared. Like, will they ever see them again? It's nuts. Yeah. And then she writes, one man died after he reportedly fell 30 feet and broke his neck while being pursued by agents during the raid. His family took him off life support on Friday afternoon. By all accounts, he was a glorious human being, a family man, a father, the whole support of his family, working hard to give his children a chance in this grand American land of promise. Including lines are pretty rough. A life was snuffed out in pursuit of a quota. He was forced to make an impossible choice by the federal government, detention or death. It's tough. It's a tough one. But like, man, no one else is reporting like this. No one else is like putting it all out there like how it actually is. And I think that this kind of stuff is really important. I think that like lifting this stuff up to light and just telling people, even just the idea that like there's an ice raid on a farm in California, right, where they grow weed and they grow some other vegetables there too, whatever. But like telling people that like people had to literally hide in the greenhouses like overnight, so or like risk being deported. I don't know. That's like the most important information, and that should, I don't know, make people really consider their conscience and whether or not this is okay with them and if they endorse this kind of thing or whatever. I mean, some people are just cruel. There's nothing you can do about it, but I feel like bringing like the reality of the situation to people and like making them confront it is as good as it gets, I think, with journalism.
Yeah, man, it's nuts. Hard not to feel like, I don't know, it's just story after story of defeat and just bad, awful things happening that people shouldn't have to go through. But yeah, it is, again, just like, I think a testament to the importance of those kinds of stories and people like Mel who have the like human sensitivity and political intuitions that you need to like tell that story with the kind of like care that it deserves and the intensity that it deserves. So yeah, it's good, important. The events are awful, but important to kind of be building that network of solidarity and communication around it. The kind of like people's networks, I guess, that that are not as strong as they ought to be. Thanks for listening to the Magnificast. If you like what we heard, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themagnificast. If you do that, you can join our Discord where people are talking about all kinds of stuff as usual. What are people talking about lately? Let's see. Some great stuff in here about the last episode. Some good conversation about that. Matt shared some good photos, some great birthday photos of a big hike that he did. People complaining about labor in the UK. Just a lot of stuff going on from all over the world in here. That's probably the best thing about this Discord. Just a lot of different folks talking about different things all at once. Some people complaining about the Canadian NDP, which I'm definitely here for. You can get in on that if you go to patreon.com/the Magnificast. Our intro is by the Illogical Spoon. Our outro... No, wait. Our intro is by Amari Armstrong. The outro is by the Illogical Spoon. And we'll see you next week when the heat will not have sapped my brain.
I don't wanna get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord. Jackson, keep your hoods up. Keep your hoods up and you stay up late. In Jackson, you keep your hoods up. Well, you keep your hoods up and you stay up late. Oh, don't mind a cold night, but we might mind if you leave too soon. So come on now, it's still early. Beside what else are you gonna do?